Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm your professor, obviously, as you know, Joey, and I'm here with Alan. He is the Associate AD for External Operations at University of Massachusetts, correct?
Yes.
Correct. I got your title right. Okay, good. So we just wanted to talk with you guys a little bit. This week we're talking about branding in class, and so Alan agreed to talk about it. We're gonna look at some of the different aspects of sport marketing and start a little vague and then go in towards the branding aspect. So Alan, why don't you do us a favor and tell everyone what about your background, where you started, what schools you go to, and all that good stuff.
Sure. So my roots go pretty deep in the Northeast, in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island. I really started things off. I was a student athlete at Providence College from 2006 to 2011. From there, I got both my undergrad and graduate degrees at Providence while I was there. I was econ undergrad and I was international finance MBA. So I had never stepped foot into a sport management classroom until I actually stepped foot into our program here at UMass in the McCormick program within Eisenberg. So little known fact. But I really cut my teeth and got going. I knew I wanted to work in college athletics when I was competing out at Stanford University in Palo Alto back in I think it was the spring of 2008 was the first time I ran there. I ran track and field.
Sure.
And in my mind, I was just like, gosh, this is something I really want to be a part of long term. So I took it upon myself to try to network with as many athletic directors as I possibly could. I was lucky in that the Big East Conference went before realignment happened and everything was located right in Providence where I was going to school. And I remember it vividly meeting with Mike Trangasi, who was the commissioner of the Big East Conference at that time. And I asked him, I said, Mike, what kind of skill sets do you see as really highly valuable for somebody trying to enter the workforce in the near future? And this is in 2010. And his message to me was, Alan, attendances across the country are starting to go down with the advent of high definition television and the experience for a fan being at home compared to being in a venue. Cell phones are getting faster, more content is being shared. This is 9 years ago now that this was being told to me. So he had some great foresight in that. From there, I went and I worked for a company called the Aspire Group at their operation at Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. So I moved down to Atlanta in May of 2011. And for the first 28 months of my career, I picked up the phone and dialed out 100 times a day, trying to get people interested in ultimately succeeding in converting on prospects to sell them tickets to Yellow Jacket football and Yellow Jacket men's and women's basketball. From there, I was promoted 3 times within those 28 months. And then I was given the opportunity by the founder and chairman of the Aspire Group, Bernie Mullen, to go on and work at the corporate office. While I was there for another 2.5 years, I worked in more of the consulting side. So I was traveling all over the place to Division I colleges and universities across the United States, Mexican soccer teams. So I actually spent 3 months of my life in Tijuana, Mexico. I traveled all over Canada with major junior hockey in the Canadian Football League. I traveled to Australia and consulted with the National Rugby League. I traveled all over England and parts of Europe working in Premier League and Champions League soccer. And it was just great in helping me to build perspective about what drives ticket sales, service, and revenue enhancement the world over. Fast forward to August of 2015, or really April of 2015, one of my former peers and people I had worked with at Georgia Tech, Ryan Bamford, was named our athletic director here at UMass after serving as a senior associate AD at Georgia Tech. He offered me the opportunity to come here as our associate AD of sales and fan experience. I was in that role for about 3 years before I got promoted into my role now as associate AD for external operations, where I oversee all ticketing, marketing, branding, third-party media rights. I oversee our agreement with Adidas. I oversee our communications unit, and I oversee our creative services unit. So, sorry that was a little bit of a long story, but that's how I've gotten here.
Sure, and that's really good. I like how you detailed where you started at. You started at a small school as a student athlete, because we probably have a lot of people in the classroom that are student athletes, so that kind of gives them a roadmap saying, hey, if this is something you want to be around full time, this is incredibly possible. And so I appreciate that you detailed that. And so what specifically attracted you to sport marketing? You said you started off in ticket sales. Ticket sales is a big portion of sport marketing. There's no marketing without butts and seats. Like, that's the ultimate product of that. So what attracted it to you? Was it ticket sales, or did you just say, I wanted to be a part of it, and got your hands dirty in ticket sales, and that was a product?
Yeah, I think for me, what really stuck out to me was hearing about ticketing and lack of attendance dropping off. That was a recurring theme that I heard from a lot of people that I trusted their opinion on when I was thinking about getting into this industry. And thankfully, my internal strengths in terms of communication, or I guess persuasive language, married up pretty well with that first foray that I had into sport, which was ticketing and ticket sales. So it was a little bit of dumb luck there, for lack of a better term, that what I endeavored to do first when I wanted to work in sport really aligned well with my personality traits and my skill sets, just as a person. Now, is that what's going to happen for everybody? Absolutely not. But I think the more that you can try, there's this great book by Robert Greene called Mastery. And in it, he talks about something called the Da Vinci effect. So he explores Leonardo da Vinci a lot in this book. And what he talks about in terms of what is sort of a common denominator amongst a lot of highly successful people across history is people that have had working or general knowledge across many different disciplines. And that's what I would tell to this class today, is that the more experience you can get in all of the different facets of sport marketing, so whether it's communications, creative services, content creation, marketing, ticketing, whatever it is, the more you can build up your skill set across all of those different dimensions, it's only going to amplify whatever it is that you eventually land on in terms of what you want to do for your career within sport marketing.
Sure, 100%, and that's a really good point that you made, that the more experience, it kind of opens your eyes, especially in a role like you're in, where you're over all those departments, or you help facilitate those departments. So it kind of helps you have a better understanding of what your employees are going through and such of that nature. So very good point. So you've already kind of talked about it, but just to do a brief overview of what does day-to-day look like for you and the associate AD of external ops. What does that look like, especially at an FBS institution?
Yeah. So typically how I'm trying to engineer my week from start to finish is I try to get all of our standing or weekly meetings done on Mondays and Tuesdays, because really, I think a lot of times when people think about management or personnel management, there's so many books, there's so much literature, there's so much science behind trying to dissect what makes a great management style. And I'll tell you, what I've really subscribed to is what I learned from Bernie Mullen, the chairman and founder of the Aspire Group, which is recruit, hire, and train people, and really over-index on how much time you're spending with them when they come into the organization. So I try to make sure that we're thoroughly indoctrinating people into how we want to do things here over those first 2 weeks of employment when they join our team. And then from there, clearly communicating what's expected of people and what you want to see from them, and then getting the heck out of the way and letting them do their job. I'm sure a lot of students in this class play Fortnite or any of the great e-games that are happening right now. Fortnite, a lot of it is about the island or the map that you're playing on. I like to make an analogy to Fortnite. It's, okay, everybody, here's the island that I want us to get to from a goals and objectives standpoint. I don't care if you parachute in, take a hang glider in, take a boat there, ride a motorcycle across a bridge, swim. I don't care how you get there. I just want you to get there in the mutually agreed upon time, and so that we can realize that goal. So to tie it all back, I try to get all of that goal setting, calibration, and accountability measures out of the way on Monday and Tuesday. And from there, it's going from more operational level things to event level items. So really, my day-to-day is checking in with my staff, making sure that they have what they need to be able to do their job and execute at a high level. And then from there, when you're in a role such as mine, invariably there's a lot of administrative work that comes with it that really never gets harped upon or talked about in a lot of different, whether it's classes or career training modules or conferences like I go to at NACMA. Nobody ever talks about having to write purchase orders or do bids for, like I just did for our graphic design firm. And human resources, admin work, budget work, that becomes a big function of your day-to-day responsibility once you get to the assistant and associate AD level.
Sure, 100%. And what kind of just gearing towards that way, because you talk about communicating that to that Fortnite Island type deal, and that's kind of leads into the conversation for the day about branding, because branding is very much a part of having that consistent brand, having a cohesive group working towards that goal. So just what does that mean? So let's talk about what that island is for the University of Massachusetts, whether it's a lot of people identify it as UMass, and is that something that's especially perfect for you or the University of Massachusetts and your job, or is that something you guys are trying to get away from in that brand identity of UMass?
Right. So here's how I think about brand. It's when somebody's going to use a rideshare app,
sure,
very few people say, "Oh, I'm going to call a Lyft," or "I'm going to call TaxiG." It's Uber. I'm going to call an Uber. Even if you're calling a Lyft, you're calling an Uber. So a lot of times when I think about brand and what I'm talking to my staff about on a day-to-day basis is how can we make sure that we, as a brand, as the Commonwealth's flagship campus, as the University of Massachusetts, how can we achieve sort of that one name status like an Uber has, or like a Madonna, or a rapper like Future? Like, to me, it's all about like, how can you get to one name status? Because
sure,
if you've achieved that sort of penetration as a brand, you've won. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nike, Apple, Amazon, all one word. And well, I guess there's a hyphen between Coca-Cola, but like to me, that's what I'm keeping top of mind at all times, because what's the similarity amongst all those? If there's a recession, if there's a change in consumer preferences or behavior or whatever it is, Coca-Cola's brand permeates time and space in its entirety. So not saying that we're going to be able to have the brand equity and brand perception that a Coca-Cola is going to have in the landscape at large, but when you think about college football in Southern California or something like that, USC or UCLA are going to immediately come to mind. You're never going to think about San Diego State. And that's no knock on San Diego State's program, because I have a lot of respect for them. But for me, when I'm thinking about brand and our brand identity, it's how can we get to one word? How can we exhibit consistency? How can we make sure that the creative that we're putting out, whether it's graphics, images, video, how can we make sure that it is being deployed in a manner and fashion that aligns with our brand identity? So here's a great example. This year, our branding campaign is going to be called The Flagship Is. And we're the Commonwealth's flagship campus at the University of Massachusetts. And what's happening is all 21 of our 21 sports and teams here at UMass are going to have their own uniquely identifiable qualifier on that Flagship Is slogan. So our field hockey team is The Flagship Is Fearless. Our ice hockey team that just played in the national championship game last year is The Flagship Is Setting the Standard. Our women's soccer team is The Flagship Is Relentless. So to me, when it comes to brand, it's brand is your vehicle that helps drive everything it is that you're trying to do. Now, obviously, win and loss record and competitive success factors into that a lot. But in my time here, something that I've really over-indexed on is putting a big prioritization on making sure that our graphics are top flight, our video is top flight, our photos are top flight. Because the reality is, in 1994, a prospective student athlete or a fan or an alum or a donor, their interaction with the program was going to be vis-a-vis a newspaper article or stationery that they received a recruiting letter on, or something to that effect.
Sure.
In 2019 and beyond, our digital identity is where people are interfacing with us first. So we need to make sure that we have top-notch visuals on all of our social channels. Our website is really designed well from a user experience standpoint. So that's where I have advised our staff, and where I've diverted a lot of their attention to, is making sure that our digital domains are really well resourced and we're stepping forward with intent and purpose in everything that we do there.
Sure. No, and that's great. And the good thing about what that is, you answered the next two questions in that, so that's great. So lastly, just wanted to do this. So you covered a lot about branding there. Students, they're doing some reading material this week on it as well. So, is there anything that you want to leave just a lasting impression? Like, this is one thing I really want to really make sure these students know about branding before we wrap it up.
Absolutely. I would say you can never make a decision like this in a vacuum. I can't emphasize enough the importance that strategic consulting, research, market analysis
Sure.
plays into all the decisions we make. We didn't just come up with the Flagship Biz out of thin air. We came up with it after extensive surveying that we did of our ticket purchaser base after these past 2 seasons, where we identified the top 20 motivating factors in terms of what make people want to buy tickets or
Sure.
give donations to the program. And we saw that there is far and away the number one metric that people took pride in when it came to coming to our games or being a part of our program was their feeling of pride in our campus, our program being the flagship campus of the University of the state of Massachusetts.
Sure.
So, it's not rocket science, and
Sure.
a lot of it is just making sure that you have that intent and information before you go out and plan and in turn execute.
Sure, and exactly, and what you just said kind of lines up directly with what I was hoping this would get to, is that brand is basically your identity, right? And you want, if there's a fan base that you have, you want them to take on the identity of the school, so that way it's cohesive. And so they take pride in it. They're going to wear more UMass logos. They're going to spend more money,
Right.
and that ultimately that's going to lead to a better fan base, and that means you're going to know your fan base better, which hopefully leads to obviously more revenue generating for you, but also at the same time happier fan bases, which is essentially what we're looking for in sport marketing. You're looking to engage and build relationships with your fan base, so that way you can understand what they want and then provide it for as much as you can. So
Absolutely.
sure. So if any of the students wanted to make contact with you, what is the best way to do that? Obviously you talked about social media, so
Yeah, I'm highly active on Twitter. I kind of go into hibernation during the summer.
sure.
But once we're within the sticks of our competitive seasons, I'm really active on there. So I'm at AP_UMass.
Mhm.
You can also find me if you go to umassathletics.com and go to the staff directory. You'll see my name. My email address is there, apan, A-P-A-N, @umass.edu. And whether it's via email, via Twitter, I'm happy to answer any further questions that the class might have, or if you're looking for engagement, career advice. I'll leave everybody with this. If you're really serious about wanting to work in sports, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes for either free or next to free for the first 24 to 36 months of your career. I graduated from Providence College with my MBA. I turned down a $85,000 a year job coming out of college to work at CVS Caremark in Warwick, Rhode Island, to go and make $18,000 a year at Georgia Tech in my first year out of college. So this is natural selection at its finest. This industry thins the herd to get the contenders separated from the pretenders. And if you consider yourself a contender, like I said, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes for those first 24 to 36 months. And you should try to identify the universe, whether it's ticketing, marketing, sponsorship, media rights, etc. Identify what universe you're trying to move into and get as close to the sun as possible.
Sure. Well, Alan, we really do appreciate it. And just for the students to know, Alan and I have never talked outside of Twitter. So that doesn't show you the power of social media. I don't know what is. So, Alan, I appreciate it. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a great